A strange thing happens before almost every important moment of our lives. Before the interview, before the first date, before the difficult conversation, before stepping onto the stage. Long before anything has actually happened, our minds quietly decide what they expect will happen. Sometimes, those expectations become surprisingly accurate, not because we can predict the future, but because, without realizing it, we begin helping create it. A young man stands outside a downtown office building. Morning commuters flow confidently around him. He isn't moving. He smooths the front of his jacket, checks his resume for the third time, takes one slow breath, then another. He looks through the revolving glass doors. They're probably not going to hire me. Nothing has gone wrong. No one has judged him. No interviewer has asked a question. Nothing has happened. Yet somehow, his future already feels decided. He finally steps inside. Hours later, he walks back out. His shoulders have fallen. His eyes stay fixed on the sidewalk. I knew it. I wasn't good enough. But was he right? Or did that single sentence outside the building quietly shape everything that happened after he walked through the door? Imagine two people walking into exactly the same room, the same opportunity, the same people, the same conversation. One silently thinks, I belong here. The other quietly believes, they're going to see right through me. Neither person says those words aloud, but both begin behaving as though they're already true. One speaks a little more freely, the other hesitates. One asks another question, the other ends the conversation early. One interprets a neutral expression as curiosity, the other quietly mistakes it for rejection. By the end of the day, their experiences no longer feel the same, not because the world treated them completely differently, but because their expectations quietly shaped the way they moved through it. Psychologists call this the self-fulfilling prophecy, a belief or expectation that subtly changes our behavior until it helps create the very outcome we expected all along. It isn't magic, it isn't fate, and it isn't wishful thinking. It's something much more ordinary, which is precisely what makes it so powerful. The most important expectations in our lives rarely sound dramatic. They're the quiet stories we repeat day after day. I'm not leadership material. People always leave. I'm terrible with names. I never get lucky. I'm just not creative. Most drift through our minds unnoticed, without challenge, without question, without resistance. Yet each one quietly nudges our confidence, our body language, our persistence, our relationships, and eventually, our future. Tiny changes, almost invisible, until one day, the life around us begins looking remarkably similar to the story we've been telling ourselves all along. Tonight, we'll explore how expectations shape classrooms, careers, friendships, love, and even our sense of identity. Because sometimes, the most influential voice in your life is the one no one else can hear. Every event has two beginnings. The first is the moment it actually happens. The second often begins much earlier, inside our minds. Before we make the phone call, we imagine how it will go. Before asking someone on a date, we rehearse their answer. Before raising our hand in class, before introducing ourselves, before applying for the job, our brains quietly begin constructing a future that doesn't exist yet. Psychologists often describe the brain as a prediction machine. Every second, it compares the present with everything we've experienced before, searching for patterns, looking for certainty, trying to answer one simple question: what happens next? Usually, this ability serves us remarkably well. It helps us catch a ball, finish someone else's sentence, navigate familiar streets without thinking, avoid dangers we've encountered before. Prediction is one of the brain's greatest strengths. But prediction has a hidden cost. Sometimes our expectations stop helping us understand reality and begin quietly shaping it. Imagine walking into a room expecting people to dislike you. You smile a little less, speak a little more cautiously, avoid eye contact, leave conversations just a little sooner. The people around you respond with equal hesitation, not because they disliked you, but because uncertainty often invites uncertainty. You leave convinced, I knew they wouldn't like me. The expectation feels confirmed. But what actually happened? Did you discover reality? Or did you quietly participate in creating it? This is what makes the self-fulfilling prophecy so difficult to recognize. It rarely announces itself. There is no dramatic turning point, no obvious decision, just hundreds of tiny moments. A shorter answer, a quieter voice, one opportunity left unexplored, one compliment dismissed, one conversation never started. Each one seems insignificant, yet together they gently bend the direction of a life. And because the change happens so gradually, we rarely notice that the future we're experiencing today may have begun as nothing more than a sentence we quietly believed yesterday. For the past several minutes, we've been standing outside those revolving doors, wondering what happened after they closed. Now, let's go inside. Nothing about the interview was unusual. No hostile questions, no obvious mistakes, no dramatic rejection. Just two people meeting for the first time. The interviewer smiles. Our young man smiles back, but only briefly. Their handshake lasts just a moment. He sits, carefully, almost cautiously. The interviewer asks him to tell her about himself. He answers, clearly, politely, but briefly. She nods, encourages him to continue. Instead, he stops. A few moments later, she asks about a project he's proud of. He immediately begins talking about what went wrong, what he should have done differently, what he wishes he'd known. The interviewer listens, then quietly moves to the next question. She asks whether he has any questions for her. He actually does, several. Questions he'd carefully prepared the night before, about the company, the team, the opportunity. But suddenly, they don't seem worth asking. No, I think you've covered everything. The interview ends. They shake hands once more. She thanks him for coming. He thanks her for her time, and he leaves. Nothing catastrophic happened, nothing embarrassing, nothing anyone else in the building would remember. Yet outside, walking back toward the sidewalk, one sentence quietly returns. I knew they weren't going to hire me. But notice something remarkable. The interviewer never heard that sentence. She never knew it existed. She never saw his expectations. She only experienced the behaviors those expectations quietly created. A shorter answer, less eye contact, less curiosity, less confidence. Not because he lacked ability, but because he had already begun preparing himself for disappointment. This is how self-fulfilling prophecies usually work, not through grand decisions, but through tiny adjustments, almost too small to notice. A smile that disappears half a second sooner. A handshake that's just a little less confident. An opportunity left unexplored. By themselves, they seem meaningless. Together, they become a completely different first impression. The interviewer wasn't rejecting his potential. She was responding to the version of him that his expectations had quietly created. The tragedy isn't that he failed. The tragedy is that he never realized he had been participating in the outcome all along.
Sometimes, the stories that shape our lives aren't the ones we tell ourselves. Sometimes they begin inside someone else's mind. In 1968, two psychologists, Robert Rosenthal and Lenore Jacobson, asked a simple question. Could a teacher's expectations change a student's performance? Not through better lessons, not through extra tutoring, simply through belief. At the beginning of the school year, students completed a series of assessments. Afterward, teachers were quietly told that certain children had been identified as academic bloomers, students who were expected to make remarkable intellectual gains during the coming year. There was only one problem. The names had been chosen at random. Those students possessed no special advantage, no hidden talent, no unusual intelligence, only someone else's expectation. Months passed. The teachers never intended to treat those children differently. Most believed they hadn't. Yet something extraordinary happened. The students labeled as future bloomers actually improved more than many of their classmates. Why? Because expectations had quietly changed behavior. Teachers smiled a little longer, waited another second before giving the answer, called on those students just a bit more often, offered slightly more encouragement, slightly more patience, slightly more confidence. No single moment mattered very much, but hundreds of tiny moments did. The students began responding to the confidence they sensed around them. They raised their hands more often, attempted harder problems, recovered more quickly from mistakes. Slowly, their performance began matching the expectations surrounding them. Not because they had changed overnight, but because someone believed they could. Psychologists now call this the Pygmalion Effect, when higher expectations lead to improved performance. Not through magic, not through destiny, but through countless invisible interactions that quietly accumulate over time. Think back for a moment. Was there ever someone who believed in you before you believed in yourself? A teacher who saw ability you couldn't yet see? A coach who refused to let you quit? A parent who expected more from you because they knew you were capable of more? Those moments rarely feel extraordinary while they're happening. Only later do we realize they may have changed the direction of an entire life. Belief is contagious. So is doubt, and both have a way of becoming reality. Sometimes the stories that shape us aren't the ones we tell ourselves. They're the ones someone else quietly believes about us. In the next chapter, we'll discover that these invisible expectations don't remain inside classrooms. They quietly follow us into friendships, into careers, into love, and eventually into the person we believe ourselves to be. The classroom eventually ends. The report cards disappear. The teachers retire. The school hallways grow quiet. But something else quietly comes with us. The expectations we've learned to believe. Some people enter every room expecting to be welcomed. Others expect to be judged. Some expect success. Others begin preparing for disappointment long before anything has happened. These expectations rarely announce themselves. Instead, they whisper, "I'm probably not good enough. They won't like me. I always mess this up. I've never been lucky. They're only being nice." Most of us don't hear these thoughts because we've heard them for so long. They begin sounding like reality. Imagine two people walking into the exact same networking event. One quietly believes, "I'm going to meet interesting people." The other believes, "I don't belong here." They enter the same room, meet the same strangers, hear the same conversations, yet they experience entirely different evenings. One smiles first, the other waits. One asks questions, the other keeps looking at the floor. One leaves with 3 new connections, the other leaves believing, "I knew nobody wanted to talk to me." The room didn't create the experience. The expectation quietly shaped it. Psychologists call one version of this the Golem Effect, when low expectations lead to poorer outcomes. Not because people lack ability, but because expectations quietly influence effort, confidence, persistence, and hope. Our minds do something similar inside our own bodies. When patients believe a treatment will help, their brains often respond before the medicine ever begins working. Sometimes, belief itself changes the experience. Scientists call this the placebo effect. The opposite can happen too. Negative expectations can increase pain, create symptoms, or magnify discomfort, even when nothing harmful has occurred. This is known as the nocebo effect. Different expectations, different outcomes. The same human mind. None of this means our thoughts magically control reality. Life remains unpredictable. Hard things still happen. Loss still finds us. Failure still teaches us. But before reality ever responds, our expectations quietly shape how we respond first. And sometimes, that changes everything. So, if expectations quietly shape behavior, can we change them? Not overnight, not by pretending, not by repeating words we don't actually believe. Real change usually begins much smaller, with curiosity instead of certainty. Imagine standing once again outside those revolving doors. The same building, the same interview, the same resume. Nothing outside has changed. Only one sentence. Instead of saying, "They're probably not going to hire me," you quietly say,
I'm curious to find out what happens. Notice what changes. Your shoulders relax. You make eye contact a little longer. You ask the questions you prepared. You smile without forcing it. You become just a little more yourself. Perhaps you still don't get the job. That can happen. But now, the outcome reflects the interview instead of the story you wrote beforehand. Small expectations create small behaviors. Small behaviors create different experiences. Different experiences slowly become a different life. Confidence is rarely the beginning. It is often the result of many small moments where courage quietly showed up first. Every conversation begins long before we speak. Every opportunity begins long before we arrive. Every relationship begins long before we say hello. Because before the world responds to us, we have already begun responding to the story we quietly believe. Perhaps that story was given to you many years ago by a teacher, a parent, a stranger, or perhaps by yourself. The remarkable thing about stories is that they can change. Not all at once, not overnight, but one expectation, one conversation, one quiet act of courage at a time. The future has no way of knowing what story you've been telling yourself. It only meets the person who arrives. So, if beliefs really do become reality, perhaps the most important story you will ever tell is the one you begin telling yourself today. Thank you for watching.